Alright, but our top story today. Let's address what everyone has been talking about all weekend. And no, it's not a particular social media star who faked her own death, but it is cervical cancer. Yesterday was World Cancer Day. And yes, the conversation was about cancer, but in all the wrong ways possible. So on TBC, let's put the needle back to where it belongs. On the second biggest killer of women in India, it is cervical cancer. We spoke with a team of doctors to bring you everything you need to know about cervical cancer. So let's understand all the basics in under 5 minutes. First, let's start with how India has the highest burden of cervical cancer in Asia. Cervical cancer is the second most common cancer in women. And every 8 minutes, a woman dies from cervical cancer. By the time we end this bulletin, you can imagine how many lives would have been lost. Do the math yourself. Over 1.2 lakh women are diagnosed of cervical cancer every year, and over 77,000 women die from it every year. It is detectable despite that, and also, if detected early, can be easily treated. So, what exactly is the problem? We'll discuss that. Also, middle-aged women and those over the age of 30 are at a higher risk. People like me, for example. Also, there is a lot of confusion over cervical cancer. A lot of people calling it cervical cancer. So let me correct you. Cervical is a very different part of the body. Not there. Cervix, what we are talking about, is the lower part of the uterus that connects it to the vagina. Alright, let's talk about key symptoms now. The key symptom, the main thing that doctors will tell you, which should alarm you, should be the red flag about cervical cancer, is a smelly, white, vaginal discharge. If that's coming, please ring up your gynec and discuss it. Also, if you have a vaginal bleeding between your periods, if you have bleeding after menopause, these are pretty basics, remember, but do keep this in mind on what the correlation might be and dial up your gynec. Also, if you have vaginal bleeding after intercourse, or you have very heavy menstrual bleeding lasting longer than usual. Also, another giveaway for cervical cancer is a pelvic pain or pain during intercourse that you might be feeling. All these should be a red flag for you. Also, let's talk about what are the causes then. So the causes, cervical cancer particularly stems from a viral infection, remember, called the HPV. HPV is a very common virus that is passed through sexual contact. Now, most cervical cancers are caused by this HPV, but remember, HPV doesn't necessarily lead to cancer. We'll decode that for you, so don't get alarmed straight away if you have HPV. For most people, HPV will never cause problems and usually will go on its own. But in some cases, it can change and lead to cancer. So you have to be careful and watch out. There are also some risk factors, things you should not be doing if you want to stay away from cervical cancer. One is very basic, cervical cancer or not, just don't do it. Don't smoke tobacco. Increasing or increased number of sexual partners can give you that. Early sexual activity, and also remember, like we said, it is a sexually transmitted disease. Also, this is, and listen to this carefully when I say, very long-term exposure to miscarriage prevention medicine. Not short time, not a period prescribed by a doctor, but on a very long term, this can lead to cervical cancer. So then the question really is, how to prevent it? Well, ask your doctor about the HPV vaccine. Now, the government is also accelerating the reach of these HPV vaccines. Have routine cancer screening for women above 30. It's a must. Also, practice safe and protected sexual intercourse. That really should do you good. All right, now that you have understood, I hope, everything that is to be known about cervical cancer,